Hello all, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about haunting tales in Georgia. The reason why I choose Georgia is because it is a very complicated state. You know, Georgia is one of the oldest states in the USA, and of course, it was part of the Confederacy. Not only that, but even though I currently live in a different state, I spent most of my childhood in Georgia, so that state will always have a special place in my heart. We will be covering two stories. The story of Tamla, who, as you know, went to a sleepover, but the next day she was found dead, as well as the haunting tales of Lake Lanier. And I will show you how these two tales are connected. So sit back, relax, grab a snack, and please enjoy the video. Tamla was a beautiful 40-year-old woman who was also a mother of 5 beautiful children. She was invited to a sleepover at a house in Cumming, Georgia. She arrived there at 10 p.m. and played card games, drank, and watched football with the other woman. According to the witnesses, at around 2 a.m. in the morning, she got up to smoke a cigarette on the balcony. And that was the last time she was ever alive. What is strange to me about this is that even though this was supposed to be a woman's slumber party, there were 3 men at the house. And in addition to that, it seems like no one saw her come back in and got worried to check on her, and no one seemed to hear a loud thud, because I'm pretty sure someone falling to the ground would make a lot of noise. Were they really that drunk that they couldn't process a loud sound? Her body was discovered the next day around 7:30 in the morning by the homeowner's aunt. Almost an hour and a half later, that's when the homeowner's boyfriend called 911.
Yes. Okay, what's going on?
We had people over last night. We were drinking. Most of us went to bed. One of them stayed on the balcony. She was drinking, and we just went outside, and she's laying face down in the backyard. It looks like, I'm guessing maybe she fell off the balcony, but she's stiff.
Okay, is she breathing?
I don't know if she's face down.
Okay, how old is she?
41.
Now, what did you guys think about that call? I'm sorry, but I'm not buying it. She didn't sound like she was horrified or even in a freeze shock. Come the autopsy and the police investigation, the police simply assumed that it was accidental and ruled her death as a result of drinking too much alcohol. But we know that can't be true. After all, the family did their own separate autopsy.
Solve the puzzle.
You get all this information and you go, wait, nothing makes sense here.
Ralph Fernandez, the attorney for Tamla's husband, says he's gone through the evidence, every interview, document, and scene photo. So has Tamla's father and friends like Michelle Graves.
Why not just let this go?
I cannot let this go because I know that what they said did not happen to her.
So we went through it all as well to take you inside the investigation to understand why the family remains convinced police are still missing pieces to this puzzle.
I know this was a homicide. The problem is I can't pin it on anybody because I don't have a badge and I don't have a gun.
We also got access to something that is not in the GBI's report. For the first time, the family is making their independent autopsy public. In it, Dr. Adele Shaker says the dislocated wrist mentioned in the GBI's report is actually a compound fracture. And the fracture in her spine isn't a fracture at all. And to him, what is most important is what the GBI's medical examiner did not find.
There is no evidence of any significant injuries to the skull bones.
In Dr. Shaker's report, he says the lack of broken bones in Tamla's skull make him skeptical that she died falling from the second story of a building.
On February 20th, 2019, the case was closed and ruled as an accidental death, with the sheriff saying, and I quote, "It was a party. Everyone was drinking. She was drinking. She was on the balcony alone. Even though the case was briefly going viral after the George Floyd protests, it was still considered an accidental death. The case was briefly reopened in June of 2020, but then around 1 month later in July, it was closed again, and the police said they would not be pursuing the case any further. And I'm sorry to say this, but I don't ever think Tamla would get the justice she deserves, particularly for one reason everyone seemed to have forgotten. Tamla's death and the so-called sleepover with friends she went to, it was located in a city called Cummings, Georgia, which is in Forsyth County. And Forsyth County has historically been a sundown town, meaning if you are black or if you're not white, if you are caught in a sundown town after sundown, you won't make it when the sun comes back up. Go on Google right now, and I guarantee if you type in Forsyth County sundown, there will be a whole bunch of articles showing you just how racist and evil this town is. And that brings me right into my next story about the infamous Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier is an artificially made lake that has had more than 700 people die in its waters. Some people say that this lake is haunted and that when they swim in it, they can literally feel someone trying to drag them down. Whether you believe it is haunted or not, one thing is for sure. In order to make Lake Lanier, they had to force people to move out. And who are those people exactly? That's right, Black people. Lake Lanier is also located in parts of Forsyth County, and where it used to be was a wealthy town called Oscarville. It all started in 1912 when two different women claimed that Black men assaulted them. This would spark an all-out response of violence from the night riders. The night riders were people who would use the cover of the night to commit their acts of terror, which included but not limited to arson, shooting guns into buildings, dragging people out of houses to lynch them, verbal threats, and in general, anything you could think of. Being ran out of town meant that the owners had to leave their land behind, which was really terrible because this land was passed down from generation to generation. Of the people who did not leave voluntarily, they were either forced to leave or, well, you can imagine what happened. Of the 40 Black landowners, only 24, or about half, were able to actually sell their land off. And of course, this was probably sold at a loss. But their fight wasn't over yet. These people would try to restart their entire lives in Gainesville. That is, if they could make it there alive in one piece. As they were being chased by an angry mob, they finally came to a river. And well, they had two options. Either they had to swim or drown. When I was in the 8th grade, I was going to school in Georgia, and I remember I had to take Georgia state history to pass the 8th grade. I don't ever remember them teaching shit about this. Now, don't get me wrong, Georgia is a very beautiful state with plenty to see and do, but it also has a dark history you should be aware of. And please be aware of where you travel to, for even if it's safe to do so, you may never know how many have hidden feelings behind a secret mask. So what do you guys think? Do you guys believe that Lake Lanier is haunted? Me personally, I think so. I've seen way too much weird shit in life to not believe in ghosts and supernatural things like that. An entire city in all its buildings, and of course, some people are buried underwater. Even a forest with trees over 60 feet tall are underneath its grasp. A lot of people have said that Lake Lanier's underwater currents are extremely strong. Like I said earlier, some people even compare it to being dragged underneath the water by something. Regardless of what you believe, Both Tamla Horsford and the story of Lake Lanier show that every state in America has some kind of wicked past. If you'd like to travel, be safe, be alert, and make sure you know a little about the area that you're going to be traveling to. Thank you all, and please have a good weekend.